Alright, Anime Echoes here, so I'm going to be talking about Kageyama as per the title. So, Kageyama's growth can't go without mention. His character arc, I think, is seriously amazing, and I love it so much, honestly. And I'm going to gush about it because what else am I supposed to do? Okay, so remember Kageyama at the start. He was yelling at his teammates all the time, telling them to move faster, jump higher. He wanted them to be like superhuman or something. But, it's not possible. He wasn't a team player at all. He was just a little overzealous about volleyball. Then he gets his ass humbled, and rightfully so. Kitagawa Daichi don't run up to actually hit his sets, and that moment is etched into his brain. Now, you all know the moment I'm talking about. They show it so many times in the show and the manga. Kageyama setting, the ball bounces, no one's there, that kind of stuff. And yeah, he's all alone now. But he ends up going to Karasuno and jump forward a bunch, and he learns to trust his teammates. Sugawara shows him the ropes, shows his skills, and I think the main thing he shows him and the team shows him is that like teammates are important, you know. But it's not just that. Kageyama's not stupid. He knows that, for the sport, that he needs to rely on his teammates. Though he does say that if it was up to him, he would spike, set, receive, and do the whole sport on his own. But what I'm saying is, like, he understands that he needs people. That's why he was so intense about it. Like, that's why that moment in his past where his teammates didn't run up and spike the ball hits him so hard. It's not just rejection from his teammates, but rejection from the sport itself. You can't play volleyball alone. But the fact doesn't change that Kageyama is someone who sets only to those who he sees has value. But his notion of what's valuable is basically what threw him off. He wanted speed. He wanted his spikers to get there fast and hit hard. But Suga and the rest of Karasuno show him different kinds of strength. I mean, Suga has none of that and yet surprises Kageyama completely. He turns the tide of the first Seijo match, and that's just with his presence. Like, the lesson that Kageyama learns isn't just to trust his teammates, but that his teammates are actually powerful, that they have their own skills, their own power, that the gauge he used to determine value was incomplete. He had speed and power on there, but there's so much more nuance that goes into what strength is actually. And he gets that, and that's why he throws away his, dictator cloak and, the crown and all that. He's not a dictator king anymore. He's part of the team. Now, fast forward a bit. Kageyama really does end up taking the role of more of a goody two shoes, like Atsumu said. It's not a bad thing per se, but he does. Like when Hinata wants to shake up the team and learn a new free quick, he tells him not to. He knows just how much selfishness can destroy a team. He knows it too well, he's lived it, and he doesn't want to see it again. And so they fight, but Oikawa beats some sense into him. He tells him if he doesn't even try to listen to what Hinata has to say, or even attempt to, be open to it, or even try it out, then he's just going back to being the dictator king. You can see his dilemma here. He thought what he would have to learn would be an easy lesson. I trust my teammates now, so I can just turn my brain off and it's all good. Nothing to worry about, but he can't do that. He became someone who puts the team above everyone else, including growth, which is an extremist point of view that leads him to donning the crown again without knowing. So Oikawa shows him that even if he thinks he's being, empathic and team orientated, that doesn't mean that he can't still play the dictator. It's not mutually exclusive. And so, kind of understanding that and being a bit more open to it, they do the freak quick and he learns it for the most part. Though he doesn't fully understand that lesson completely. Like, Kageyama does change a little bit in that moment, but really what he does is he kind of just opens up to, allowing other team members to put the team at risk, essentially, for the sake of growth. but he doesn't fully understand the lesson. He's still being a goody two shoes, right? I mean, with the exception of, Hinata in the interactions where he's always yelling at him. But even then, he's still being a goody two shoes to some extent. Then we get to Atsumu popping up at the youth camp. He arrives and is like, hey, you have a really tense look in your face when you're setting. It doesn't look like you're having much fun. Is everything okay? Like, you all good? Like, you're very accommodating of others. I can see that, but this isn't who you are. Like, you're being a goody two shoes. When you spiked my sets, Atsumu's saying that you were enjoying yourself. You're overly restraining yourself to get along with people, essentially. Now, Kageyama hears this and he's flustered. He's frustrated. He comes back from the youth camp and all of that confusion and the frustration about how much he should be accommodating and how much he shouldn't be boils up. Then he explodes and he starts yelling at Karasuno and he ends up looking like that previous version. The return to the king, as it were. That's what the episode title is. Atsumi cracked open something fundamental, that Kageyama was holding himself back and that his teammates weren't stepping up to the plate in many ways. He had accommodated for his teammates way too much, and then when he tries not to, do that, he screws up and ends up yelling at them during the Date Tech match. There's a sweet midpoint between those two perspectives, but he can't see it within himself just yet. And, he's trying to get that middle. Like, what does it mean for me to push my team, but then at the same time, be nice and accommodating? He can't. Like, he sees it as a fundamental contradiction. Then Coach Ukai says to him that setting to his teammates the way they want is very important, but no one ever said that he can't ask for what he wants. And this is key. Like, this is fundamental. Kageyama all this time had always been asking for, like, he's always seen asking what you want as an alienating action. Something that would make his peers run away from him. It did in the past, so why wouldn't it happen now? But it's not. He learns in this moment that there is a sweet spot for him, and that's learning communication. That was a sweet spot this whole time. The middle point of the two extremes. Don't over-accommodate and hide yourself, but don't be so selfish you hurt others. The way you actually get along with people and your team is, like, in order to push them to be their best, you find that out through communication. There's a very great line. He says, I can be a goody two-shoes here. And he's talking about when he's training with Date Tech. It's perfectly fine to be a goody two-shoes and accommodating at that moment because they're learning new stuff, He needs to not push them too much, right? Because they're learning new stuff. They're going to fail. Like, that's a time where the setter needs to just be okay with the spikers experimenting. And even then, he's able to push them a little in certain moments. But in a match, it's high intensity. He's allowed to push them more. He's allowed to be like, hey, step up. This is the time where you need to raise yourself. And I'm not going to just set the ball, And he needs to actually assess the health of his teammates as well. Like, it's very confusing and it can feel complicated because there's all this information that Kageyama needs to take into consideration in order to become a great setter. All of a sudden, volleyball becomes very, very complicated. So, like, what he's understanding is when to push and when not to. And through learning that, bit by bit, Kageyama pushes his teammates forward, like with Suki, making him jumping higher. He makes him jump higher, and his jumping point becomes higher. And because of that, his contact is now higher, and he goes over the blocks. So that's a fantastic amount of character development for him. And then the crown returns to him. It's on his head again, and he's very much being authentic. Because deep down, he is a king. He likes to push his teammates and direct the flow of the game. That's the crux of his personality. That's why his face was always so strained. Because deep down, he is a king. He is the type of person who likes to push others to be their best. And the part of him that's, the part of him that's learned to be accommodating, while that part is something he definitely needs to learn, it's not fundamental to his natural personality, right? So, like, reconciling those two, all of that requires communication and understanding when to push and when not to, and all that stuff. There's going to be matches where he really does need to just be the accommodating person. But there's going to be matches where he actually needs to be the person who's pushing the entire team up. And I think that's what makes his development so powerful. Things aren't simple. Like, even in our own lives, we learn lessons and then maybe we take it way too far. Like, then we learn the opposite lesson way too much, and all of a sudden we were someone, we were someone that we weren't anymore because we were so scared of whatever happened in the past. Then we, sit there in confusion, but then we go, okay, maybe I can swing back again to that version of myself, the truer version of myself. And then eventually you learn nuance. It's tough, and that complete confusion that people have to go through when trying to really find a place where you're working on your flaws, but then at the same time being authentic. I think that is perfectly captured by Kageyama's character arc. Like, I love his development so much, and it's probably my favorite piece of character development in the whole series. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about that, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And I hope you guys have a great day. Alright, till next time. Bye.